session meeting to order, and I'd like you to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which is one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if I could ask you to please remain standing for a moment. We would like to recognize Terry Noyes, who recently passed. She was an avid supporter of the Alton school systems and really the town in general. She served on a number of committees and really put a lot of time into this town as a volunteer. And so if we could please just have a moment of silence for her. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to introduce the people at the head tables. On my left and your right are members of the school board. Members representing the school, I should say. We have Linda Roy, the school district clerk, Pamela McLeod, the Alton School Board chairman, Carol Locke, member of the Alton School Board, and Lauren Ferruccio, member of the Alton School Board. At the back table, we have Timothy Broderick, superintendent, Matthew Jazokis, the assistant superintendent, curriculum and instruction and assessment coordinator, Heidi Duford, our business administrator, and John MacArthur Jr., the Alton Central School principal. We have nobody representing the budget committee. However, we do have in the audience joining us the selectman's representative to the budget committee, Richard Shea. Next, I'm going to read the moderator's rules for this meeting. The moderator will not follow Robert's rules. The moderator will use the following general rules of procedures whose main purpose is to keep the meeting moving and not get bogged down in procedural quagmires. By majority vote, the voters can overrule any decision that the moderator makes and any rule that the moderator establishes. A voter can raise such a request as a point of order. The moderator will take articles in the order that they appear on the warrant unless this body votes otherwise. After an article is read, a motion must be made and seconded prior to any discussion of the article. The names of those making and seconding the motion will be required. The moderator will then ask for someone to speak in favor of the article and then open discussion to both pro and con. The moderator will allow only one motion on the floor at a time, with the exception of points of order, a motion to amend the pending article by the person who has the floor, or a motion to move the question by a person who has the floor. No one may speak unless they are recognized by the moderator and have the floor, with the exception of points of order. Everyone who speaks must use the microphone. Please start by stating your name and be aware that the meeting is being videotaped. All amendments to a motion must be in writing. Motions to move the question, limit debate, require a 2/3 vote. Non-voters of the town of Alton may not speak at the meeting without the permission of the voters, except the moderator will allow non-resident town and school officials and consultants or experts who are here to provide information about an article to speak. All speakers must be courteous. The moderator will not allow personal attacks or inappropriate language. If you are out of order, you will be warned once. If you persist, you will be assisted from the building by the police officer in attendance. All questions and comments should be addressed to the moderator. The moderator will choose who responds to the questions. With the exception of initial presentations on articles, which the moderator requests are limited to 10 minutes, all speakers in debate will be limited to 3 minutes. Each speaker may only speak once until everyone has spoken, limited to 2 times per article. Voting will be done by a show of cards. If, in the opinion of the moderator, the result is inconclusive, a standing vote will be taken. A secret ballot will be used when required by statute or when requested by 5 voters who are present at the meeting during or at the end of the debate on the article. A motion to reconsider may be made after a vote has been taken and must be made by someone who voted with the prevailing side. A motion to restrict reconsideration of an article may be made after a vote has been taken. This moderator will only vote on an article if it is a tie. To the inhabitants of the school district and the town of Alton qualified to vote in district affairs, you are hereby notified to meet at Prospect Mountain High School, 242 Suncook Valley Road in said district on the 12th day of March 2024 at 7 o'clock in the afternoon to act upon the following subjects. In the forenoon, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. is voting. The following subjects are to choose a moderator for the ensuing year, to choose a clerk for the ensuing year, and to choose 2 members of the school board for 3 years. Voting will be by official ballot and checklist, and the polls will remain open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Absentee voting will be allowed at this election. The inhabitants of the school district of Alton local school in the state of New Hampshire qualified to vote in the school district affairs. First session of the annual meeting, deliberative. You're hereby notified to meet at Prospect Mountain High School on 242 Suncook Valley Road in said district on Saturday, February 3rd, 2024 at 1 p.m. This session shall consist of explanations, discussions, and debate of warrant articles numbers 1 through 9. Warrant articles may be amended subject to the following limitations. A warrant article whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended. And B, warrant articles that are amended shall be placed on the official ballot for a final vote on the main motion as amended. This session shall also be to hear the state of the school reports of agents, auditors, committees, or officers, and to pass any vote relating thereto. The second session of the annual meeting, voting by official ballot. Voting on warrant articles should be conducted by official ballot to be held in conjunction with town meeting voting on Tuesday, March 12th, 2024, right here at Prospect Mountain High School Gymnasium at 242 Suncook Valley Road in Alton. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. and shall remain open until 7 p.m. At this time, I'd like to invite Pamela McLeod, the Alton School Board Chair, to give a state of the school.
Thank you, Sydney. Good afternoon. I'm ending my year as chair of the Alton School Board, and just a couple of really quick remarks. You're going to get a lot more detail about this in the superintendent's report. First of all, I'm proud of the school board for very responsible budgeting for the past year. A highlight of last year's budget, we've really focusing more on forward-looking capital planning, which is something that you'll see it as a theme if you attend school board meetings, public hearings, and budget meetings. Last year's budget saw a return of surplus to the town, which is actually pretty typical for the school district. The voters approved a warrant article, the third phase of 3 phases for the Alton Central School cafeteria. That work has yet to be done, but we're looking forward to seeing that completed. And last year, our voters, thank you, approved a 4-year contract for the Alton Teachers Association at Alton Central School, a contract for the Prospect Support Staff Paras Association, and this year you will see a contract for the Alton Central School paraprofessionals on the ballot, and I thank you in advance for supporting those hardworking staff. Last year, the town of Alton approved, and the town of Barnstead approved, open enrollment at Prospect Mountain High School. I think we all know this is an experiment and something we're sort of building the plane as we fly it with this one, but we do have students enrolled, and Superintendent Broderick will speak to that with a little more detail. And finally, I am leaving the board after this year, so I've served on the board for 2 terms, over 2 terms, so 6.5 years, so I want to thank the voters of Alton and all of my fellow school board members and administrators for their support. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Next, I'll invite Superintendent Broderick to come and give a year in review, what we can look forward to.
Mostly a review of the operating budget and warrant. Before you, I'm working from this handout that's on the table at the back of the room as you entered. Some of this is updated information that if you've attended deliberative sessions here in previous years, you're seeing for maybe the third time, maybe the fourth time, including the first page showing the enrollment at all schools between Alton and Barnstead. And as you can see, there's a small tick up this year, but overall since 2006, 2007, about a 33% decline. On the next page, at the top, you see Prospect Mountain High School and Alton Central Schools enrollment by year, going back to 2016-17, and you see that little uptick is at Prospect Mountain High School from last year to this year. There's more than one reason for that, but it does include the 11 students who do not reside in Alton or Barnstead who are attending Prospect Mountain this year. At Alton Central School, after a pretty steady decline for 10 of the last 15 years, you can see that enrollment appears to have leveled out tentatively, going on at least 4 years now. It looks like we may have reached a new expected enrollment at Alton Central School, but we'll be keeping an eye on that. The projection for the high school continues to be bleak. Next year's projected enrollment is well under 400, in the 370s, without students from outside of Alton and Barnstead attending the school, which goes to why the board has been trying this open enrollment experiment that I'll talk just a little bit more about. The board gave us 4 budget goals essentially, and one of them was to be competitive in a more challenging labor market. Another was to continue paying attention to enrollment and what we can do about that to preserve services and all of the curriculum offerings we have at both Alton Central School and Prospect Mountain High School. Next, to take a look at per pupil cost, which for Alton was running pretty significantly above state averages over the last 5 years or so, and then capital planning, as the board chair just mentioned. On the first point, the Prospect Mountain Teachers and Alton Teachers Association's contracts are in place and approved, so we have some cost certainty, but we also have competitive wages because the voters did approve these agreements over the last 3 years that made sure our teachers would be in line with the salaries being paid to teachers at nearby schools in Wolfboro and Guilford in the area that our folks could easily drive to and have a reasonable commute. So that's good news. We have some cost certainty there, but we also have fair wages. The support staff contract was ratified last year, as Mrs. McLeod mentioned, and then this year I'll talk a little bit in more detail about the warrant article you have on this warrant for the Alton Central School support staff collective bargaining agreement. Regarding enrollment trends, we are in the first year with some students who don't reside in Alton or Barnstead attending the school. As of right now, we have commitments from other districts to pay about $125,000 in tuition. That's happening more than one way. It is not surprising that some other districts had questions or concerns about RSA 194D, the open enrollment law. The State Board of Education should be weighing in on that within the next few months. I think there's a possibility that the State Attorney General might have some interest in addressing that law in the coming months. We're not a party to any of that. We're just working with our students, their families, and our colleagues in these other school districts. That means we're not spending money on lawyers. With this, we're just doing everything we can to educate these kids and wait for the state to provide more clarity about what open enrollment is and how it's supposed to work. The good news is we have some money coming in, and if you recall our conversations about this from last year, our costs are pretty much sunk by the time we have 390 students at the high school. So the next 10 or 20 or even 50 or 60 students don't add a lot of additional cost. It's really, school costs aren't scalable the way we talk about per pupil tuition. If our per pupil cost is $20,000 a year, it's not the case that every student walking in costs $20,000. The first 100 students probably cost a lot more than that because we heat the building, we light the building, and we start paying principals and other staff. But as the school grows, we still have one principal. We still use the same lights. We still have the same amount of heat. So as we get to these students who are really on the margins of our enrollment, our actual cost increases are extremely low. So that's where we are in a nutshell regarding that goal, but I think we all know that there's a lot more to come, especially in the next year or two, I think. Regarding per pupil cost, on the top of this page, which has a blue and red bar chart at the top, you can see Alton's per pupil spending in blue next to the state average in red. And what we've been trying to do while protecting the class size goals, especially at Alton Central School, where in the younger grades it's been important to multiple school boards, right, with different members for a long time, to try to keep a student-to-teacher ratio of 15 to 1 or lower in our younger grades and only allow it to get a little bit higher than that as students get closer to middle school and into middle school. We want to keep doing that. We want to keep offering things like industrial arts, both at the elementary, middle school level, and here at the high school, where we also want to continue to have a vibrant music program, fine arts, wood shop, metal shop, foreign languages. We have two. These are all really good things and a little bit unique for a school as small as we have become. So we're trying to narrow the gap between local per pupil spending and the state average while also maintaining all these things. And you can see that next year's, with the proposed budget, gap between the state average and Alton's per pupil spending will be just under $4,500. That's about a 22% difference. It is the lowest on this chart. In, I think it was 2021, it was 40-something% more than the state average being spent per pupil in Alton. So we're trying to do this in a thoughtful way. That means slowly. And some might consider that unfortunate, but it's allowing us to maintain programs, curriculum, and services to students while we try to be fiscally responsible. And then finally, on capital planning, there's been a capital plan for the elementary school for a number of years. We've continued to update that. We visit with the Town of Alton's CIP committee every year around about August or September. We bring that plan to the school board and talk about what to fund or what to request on the warrant. This year's a great example of how that process of talking with boards and committees can be useful. We were planning one warrant article to begin building toward the next boiler replacement project at Alton Central School, and through all of these public conversations decided to turn that into two warrant articles, but not for any more money. We reduced the request to go toward the boiler project in order to fund the security camera system project, and I'll mention both of those warrant articles separately in a moment. At the high school, there is a first sort of publicly approved 5-year capital plan. It's our 3rd or 4th year working on it. I've distributed this sheet, two-sided, at the back of the room also, and it gives a summary of what the cover sheet, at least, of a 5-year capital plan looks like. So if you look at this side of that sheet, in the column that's highlighted in yellow, you can see the functions or the areas of our operations where we might have capital needs or capital requests, and you can see how much in each of those areas is budgeted and requested for fiscal '25, the coming year. It amounts to just under $125,000, as you can see. I'm pointing that out just to make sure you're looking at the right column. We have detail that we share with the board available in my office behind each of these functions. So there's a separate spreadsheet that shows 5 years worth of anticipated needs in all these areas. You'll note that the technology line doesn't have anything in it, and that's because in the past the school has had a separate technology plan, which we are now working on integrating into this plan. So when we update this will get updated every year. When we update it for next year, it'll have the technology plan in it. However, it is the case that we do not need or anticipate needing to fund any capital investment for technology in fiscal '25. So the fiscal '25 request is accurate for next year. The proposed operating budget, which I believe is Article 2 in the warrant. Is up $1.162 million. It's a 7.2% increase, and I've included in this presentation for your reference that last year that request was only up 1.7%. I think that's pretty important because last year there was also over 8% inflation. And over the last 3 years, there has been over 3% inflation every year. We actually overall reduced the amount of tuition being paid to the high school by Alton last year. You can see that also in the column under fiscal '24. And I think this helps explain why these are slightly larger than usual increases this year. The school board last year directed us to level fund the high school budget. They did not do that this year. They told us to absorb our contractual obligations and the costs of inflation, keeping services as they are. So we did that this year, and it did result in a budget that's up more than it has been in the past. But again, we've been extremely conservative the last couple of years. At the bottom of that page, there's some good news to go along with a higher than average or than typical budget request increase, and that is a projected increase in state aid for Alton. We received statewide property tax revenue for Alton, and at the bottom of this page in blue bars, you can see that the projection for next year is significantly higher. It's almost $500,000 more than what we're receiving from the state in aid for fiscal '24. So that stands to absorb a really big piece of the operating budget request increase. Turning to the warrant article on the Alton Central School Support Staff Bargaining Agreement, you can see at the top of this page the current Step 1 and Step 10 wages. These are most schools' lowest paid employees, paraprofessionals, food service workers, custodians, and some administrative assistants are in this contract. The current wage scale ranges from $14.20 an hour to $18.20 an hour. I think we all know what's happened with hourly wage jobs in the labor market over the last few years. This proposed agreement in the first year would have a range of $15.45 at Step 1 to $23.96 at Step 10. The total projected costs are in the warrant article. It's most significant in the first year because this represents a significant wage change for many of these employees, and then it's a much lesser increase each of the following years because once you've made the big adjustment, then you go into just step and cost of living adjustments after that. I've mentioned the appropriation for the security camera system, which is Article 5 in your warrant. Article 6 in your warrant is the appropriation for the boiler replacement. The way the school board in Alton does this, which I happen to think is very wise, is builds the fund over the course of 4 or 5 years to do a fairly costly project. That avoids having to come to the town and say, hey, look, it's time to replace the boilers in this boiler room, and it's going to cost $600,000 or $500,000. Instead, we ask to put some money in this year, some money in next year, and some money in each of the following 3 years, and then in the 5th year, we expect to be ready to replace the boilers in that room. Moving on to Articles 7 and 8. This relates to the 5-year capital plan for the high school. Prospect Mountain High School is about to enter its 20th year of operation, and while it's wonderful to have a new school, it's not new anymore. It may still feel like it, because I know a lot of people remember what it took to get the place built, and when you walk around here, it looks pretty good. And it is pretty good, but just like at your house, water heaters don't last forever, boilers don't last forever, roofs need to be replaced. I know we don't use the R word around here when we can avoid it, but this is the reality. Mechanical systems require maintenance and replacement, and with a little bit of effort, we can predict pretty reliably when those things need to be done. And that is the purpose of the capital plan. So what Articles 7 and 8 do is Article 7 eliminates two existing capital reserve funds. One is a general maintenance fund, which was established in the early years of this school's existence to fund unanticipated maintenance needs. So if something were to break that we were not expecting to break, this money could be used for it. This money, however, cannot be used for planned or anticipated maintenance or system replacement. It can only be used, based on the language in the original warrant article that created the fund, for unanticipated needs. And then there's an athletic field fund that has been in recent years funded to the tune of about $30,000 a year, $15,000 from Barnstead, $15,000 from Alton, for the purpose that it sounds like it's for maintenance of athletic fields. Article 7 would eliminate both of them. By law, when you do that, whatever money is in those funds reverts to the school's general fund. Article 8 would create a new fund, a new capital reserve. For capital improvement, pardon me. Article 8 creates a capital improvement fund and moves all of that money that's currently in the building maintenance fund and the athletic fields fund into the new capital improvement fund. This allows the school board to publicly adopt and approve a 5-year capital plan that gets updated every year. Then to come to the voters and ask for money to be placed in the capital improvement fund for the purpose of funding the needs of this plan in the next year. They would then, the school board, the joint board, would have to hold a public hearing on accessing that money and then vote to do so. Which means that there's about a full year period of time when there are at least 3 public discussions of the capital maintenance and improvement work that needs to be done on the school each year. This is how you get to year 40, and you still walk around feeling the same way about the building and grounds that you feel today. Schools that don't do this are the places that get to year 40 and start talking about how soon are we going to have to build something new, which I can safely assure everybody is far more costly than the annual cost of executing a plan like this. I think that's it in a nutshell. I'm sure board members will have something to say about each warrant article, and we'll all be prepared to answer questions about the items on the warrant, but I hope that overview has been helpful. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We will now turn to Article 1. Article 1 is the election warrant. We have a school board member, 2 for 3 years, school district moderator, 1 for 1 year, and school district clerk, 1 for 1 year. Moving on to Article 2, the operating budget. Shall the Alton School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $7,017,472,617.00. Fiscal note, the amount of $4,827,081 is the net appropriation for the Prospect Mountain High School operating budget, which is included in the gross budget amount listed above and recommended by the Joint Maintenance Agreement, the JMA Budget Committee. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $17,056,889.00, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous actions of the Alton School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13 Roman numeral 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. This warrant article does not include appropriations in any other warrant articles. The Alton School Board recommends $17,472,617 by a vote of 5-0, and the Alton Budget Committee recommends $17,472,617 by a vote of 5-0. A majority vote is required. Who would like to move this article?
So moved, Carol Lock.
Thank you, Carol. Who seconds the article?
I second Lauren Ferruccio.
Okay. Would anyone like to speak to the article? Okay. Hearing none and seeing none, we will vote on, oh. Sure.
Lauren Carr, on page 16 of the proposed Prospect Mountain High School. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, third line down. It's the executive assistant to superintendent and human resource director. Went from 0 to 72,506. Can somebody tell me, is that a new position?
Yeah, this probably goes to how this report prints, and the notes look like they go with the line that they don't actually go with. The line, Mr. Carr, you asked about is a salary adjustment pool, right, Heidi? And it's always, every year, put in the superintendent's budget function, and it's a percentage of all the salaries of the non-union employees throughout the SAU. That includes some employees at the high school. So that money is put there, and then in the spring, the school board votes salary increases for those employees, and then that money gets pushed out to the other functions in the budget where those employees' positions are located. So it always, every year, looks like the superintendent's function is up by some large amount in that line, and then when we actually administer the budget, that money gets moved around, and that line gets reduced usually to 0.
So this is not a new position?
There are no new positions there. The line you read about the human resources administrator and the executive assistant, those are existing positions in the SAU.
Thank you.
If I may, Sydney?
Yes.
I just want to repeat what the superintendent just noted. The notes go with the line above it. So there's a big blank space between the line and the note that goes with it. It's really confusing to read. But if you're looking for the note on a particular line, look down. Gets all of us too.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none or seeing none. All those in favor of moving this article? Opposed? Okay. This article will be moved forward to the ballot.
Carol Lock, I make a motion to restrict further consideration.
Thank you, Carol.
Second Lauren Ferruccio.
Thank you. This article is now restricted for further reconsideration. Oh, excuse me. All those in favor of restricting? Opposed? Thank you. Now the article is restricted from further consideration. Okay, Article 3, the AESPA Collective Bargaining Agreement. To see if the school district will vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Alton School District and the Alton Education Support Professional Association, NEA-NH, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. Years 2024 to 2025, $293,424. 2025 to 2026, $67,093. 2026 to 2027, $70,448. And further to raise and appropriate the sum of $293,424.00 for the 2024-2025 fiscal year, attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. The Alton School Board recommends $293,424 by a vote of 5-0, and the Alton Budget Committee recommends $293,424 by a vote of 5-0. A majority vote is required. Who would like to move the article?
Carol Locke, so moved.
And who would like to second?
I do.
Thank you, Pam. Would anyone like to speak to the article?
I will. Do I need to get up? Or can-
No, you can do
Oh,
it right
okay.
from your seat. Thank
So essentially, the superintendent didn't explain why there was an increase in salary. We're trying to be competitive with places around our areas. Even McDonald's, they're offering $16 an hour. So we're trying to recognize the hard work that our support staff does and give them what they deserve to receive. But the other piece about the contract that we negotiated is that they agreed to take a less expensive health insurance policy. And so that's going to eventually save the district a lot of money over the years because they had the cream of the crop, we call it, health insurance, and they've agreed to a bigger deductible and align with the teacher's contract, which also they took a less expensive policy. So it does save the district money in the long run.
Okay. Anyone have any questions, comments?
Lauren Carr, how many individuals were going to be on this new contract?
He has it.
One? He's got his one finger up. I don't believe it.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
We have 34 people in the group currently.
34?
34, for those who might not be able to hear.
Now, is this
There are a couple of vacancies in the group, so it's probably safer to say it's 36 or 38 total covered employees.
okay, so this is starting zero. This is the first year of this, correct? Okay. Is this is a step and track? They get more as the years experience, correct? Is there anything about education for this, the top of the track?
Absolutely. If they're certified sorry.
Microphone.
What am I doing? Yes, we do recognize people with degrees, bachelors, especially if they're certified teachers. They get more money. They get certified as paraeducators. They get educated to gain more money too, so there's a track for that. So are you offering something to them?
Copies.
So yes, it does recognize education as well as experience.
And how many are on the top of the education?
We have a lot of, top of education, we have a lot of people who are in the top of the scale because they've been in Alton for so long. We have a lot of loyal employees, top of the education.
So in terms of education, the certifications are Para 1, Para 2, and then registered behavior technicians are a separate category. Employees can't move to that of their own volition. We have to need an RBT. So it's mostly Para 1 and Para 2 are the certifications. There's a differential between the two. We have 18 employees at step 10 or above due to their lengthy service.
Thank you.
For anybody who'd like a copy of this collective bargaining agreement, the superintendent did place a few copies up here for you. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we will vote. Who votes in favor of the article? Any opposed? We have a motion
I
to
make a
restrict.
motion to further restrict consideration.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration? Opposed? This motion has been restricted from reconsideration. Okay, Article 4, special warrant articles. Shall the school district, if Article 3 is defeated, authorize the governing body to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 3, cost items only? There's no motion needed on this. If we move to Article 5. Article 5, add funds to the buildings and grounds. To see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $40,000 and no cents to be added to the existing Building and Grounds Expendable Trust Fund created March 11th, 2008, under RSA 198:20C for the purpose of building, repairing, and maintaining school facilities. The Alton School District Board recommends $40,000 by a vote of 5-0. The Alton Budget Committee recommends $40,000 by a vote of 5-0. A majority vote is required. Who would like to move this article?
I do, Lauren Ferruccio.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we have anyone who would like to speak to the article?
Quick question. It's for $40,000. Is that $20,000 for Alton and $20,000 to Barnstead? Or are they each going to come up with $40,000?
This is just Alton.
This is the Alton Central.
Oh, Central School. Okay,
Right.
it's not, okay.
Anything related to Prospect Mountain is in the first article, the operating budget. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the article. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Do we have a motion to restrict reconsideration?
I make a motion to restrict further consideration, Lauren Ferruccio.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Motion to restrict reconsideration passes. Article 6. Add to the Boiler Capital Reserve Fund to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $120,000 to be added to the existing Boiler Capital Reserve Fund created on March 9th, 2099, under RSA 35:1 for the purpose of repairing, replacing water heaters, boilers, and ventilation systems. The Alton School Board recommends $120,000 by a vote of 5-0, and the Alton Budget Committee recommends $120,000 by a vote of 5-0. A majority vote is required. Who moves this article?
I do, Lauren Ferruccio.
I'll second, Carol Locke.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the article? Okay, seeing, Mr. Carr?
Can I ask the board, why didn't this article and the previous article, why didn't you take out of unassigned fund balances? It says $500,000 you had left over. Why aren't we taking it out of that? You could, correct?
We can't add it to the,
They can if they have it at the end of the year, I believe. Although voter authorization to put money into the fund, as you know, Mr. Carr, we talked about the fact that our lawyer's not here today. I can call him. The board, the Alton School Board are agents to expend from these funds. Whether they can transfer unencumbered surplus at the end of a fiscal year into them without voter authorization is a question I can't answer. I'll get that answer. But the $316,000, give or take, that was returned last year is returned. So the question would be, will there be unencumbered surplus this year that would be enough to fund these proposals? I'm going to call the lawyer.
One other comment. I see where the last speaker said about, it's hard to see whether these are Alton reserves or Prospect Mountain. Perhaps we ought to put a parentheses that they're Alton or Prospect Mountain, or else change the name of these, because it is confusing to know which one it's going to. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it looks like the Prospect Mountain article has PMHS in the title, but the Alton ones do not.
Paul Terry, Alton. So do I understand that Article 6 pertains to the Alton Central School?
Yes.
Yes.
Could someone speak to how this figure was determined and what you expect the interest rate to be in the current market? If you're going to borrow $120,000, it won't be, will there be any interest?
Well, he's trying to call the attorney
Okay.
to answer Mr. Carr's question. I think you came in a little late. There's a handout that
sorry.
looks like this,
Okay,
and the superintendent spoke to this in his presentation, so I'm just going to read from this.
oh, that's okay. If it's in the presentation, I don't want to take any, I'll go back and read it.
Yeah, it's part of a $500,000 total project, and we're raising money gradually over 5 years.
Okay, so this was, this sum was determined as a partial amount over the course of time
Yes.
as a result of a study that was done presumably by an engineering
Yes,
consultant
we always
that
have.
the work needed to be done?
Yep.
Great, thanks for providing that additional
And
information.
There's more information about
Great.
the capital planning on the
Great,
handouts.
great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Moderator? Thank you. So I've spoken with the district's lawyer. Legislative body, that is the March election, authorization is required to move funds into an expendable trust or capital reserve, even where the board are agents to expend from the trust or the reserve.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and put the article to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Article passes. Do we have a motion to restrict?
I make a motion to restrict further consideration. Lauren Ferruccio.
And do we have,
Oh, sorry.
second?
I'll second that motion. Carol Lock.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, all those in favor of restricting? Any opposed? Article is now restricted. Article 7. Discontinue multiple PMHS trust funds, Prospect Mountain High School trust funds. To see if the school district will vote to discontinue the following capital reserve funds. Number 1, the Prospect Mountain High School General Maintenance Fund established on March 13th, 2007, with a current balance as of December 15th, 2023 of $164,274.00. Number 2, Prospect Mountain High School Athletic Field Capital Reserve Fund established on March 11th, 2014, with a current balance as of December 15th, 2023 of $116,291.00. Said funds and accumulated interest to date of withdrawal are to be transferred into the general fund. The passage of this article shall be contingent upon both Alton and Barnstead school districts adopting this article and upon the passage of Article 8. The JMA Board recommends by a vote of 8-0. The Alton School Board recommends by a vote of 5-0. The Alton Budget Committee recommends by a vote of 5-0. Who would like to move the article?
I will.
Thank you, Pam. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Lauren. Who would like to speak to this article? Okay, seeing none, no discussion from the floor. Okay, We'll go ahead and vote on Article 7. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. We have a motion to restrict.
I move to restrict reconsideration of this article.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Article 7 is restricted from reconsideration. Article 8, to establish CRF PMHS Capital Improvement Fund. To see if the school district will vote to establish the Prospect Mountain High School Capital Improvement Capital Reserve Fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of funding the annual cost of the JMA Joint Board's Capital Improvement Plan for the maintenance, repair, and improvement of school buildings, equipment, fields, and campus, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $280,565.00 to put into this fund, said amount representing 50% of the total monies, $569,422.00, with this amount to come from unassigned fund balance available for transfer on June 30th, 2024, with no amount raised from taxation. Further, to name the Prospect Mountain JMA Joint Board as agents to expend said fund. The passage of this article shall be contingent upon both Alton and Barnstead school districts adopting this article and upon the passage of Article 7. The JMA Board recommends by a vote of 8-0, and the Alton School Board recommends by a vote of 5-0. The Alton Budget Committee recommends by a vote of 5-0. There is a majority vote required. Fiscal note, the amount to be deposited in the Prospect Mountain High School Capital Improvement Capital Reserve Fund is equal to 50% of the fund balance of the capital reserve funds discontinued in Article 7. Who would like to move the article?
I will.
I'll second.
Thank you, Pam and Carol. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the article?
And if I could just make a quick comment, just in general for anybody that might be new. Whenever we're doing capital planning for the high school, the funds are split 50-50 between Alton and Barnstead because the facilities are owned 50-50 between the two communities. That's a little different whenever you see operating budget items. That's split by the actual tuition numbers of the previous year. So that percentage will vary depending on how many students are coming to the high school from each town. So that's a point of common confusion I just wanted to throw out there.
Thank you, Pam. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the article?
Lauren Carr. I don't like the third line down when it says, funding the annual cost of the JMA Joint Board's Capital Improvement Plan. That's telling me that if it's not in the CIP plan, that they can't spend these funds. Why is that line in there at all? Why isn't it just the purpose of funding capital improvements for the maintenance and repair? Why are we allowing that CIP group to determine where this money can be spent? It should be the school board, joint school board. I think we ought to strike that out about the CIP in there. Purpose of funding for the maintenance. I think we ought to cross that out. I'll make a motion.
You want to hand it to me? See if we. I think we have to vote on it. I thought we did have to vote on it.
On a
Capital improvement.
There's
if the roof, okay, if the roof blows off, and it's not in the CIP plan, according to what that wording is,
Well,
people could argue, well, it wasn't in the CIP plan. So it's the same thing as going back to that last article where it said that you can only spend it for unanticipated items. So you're locked in.
we need to vote on your amendment.
Yeah, that's my amendment.
Yes, we need to vote on the amendment.
Okay, I haven't got a second yet.
Thank you. Let me read the amended motion. To see if the school district will vote to establish the Prospect Mountain High School Capital Improvement Capital Reserve Fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of funding the maintenance, repair, and improvement of school buildings, equipment, fields and campus, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $280,565.00 to put into this fund said amount representing 50% of the total monies, $569,422.00. With this amount to come from unassigned fund balance available for transfer on June 30th, 2024, with no amount raised from taxation. Further, to name the Prospect Mountain JMA Joint Board as agents to expend said funds. The passage of this article shall be contingent upon both Alton and Barnstead school districts adopting this article and upon the passage of Article 7. The JMA Board recommends by a vote of 8-0. The Alton School Board recommends by a vote of 5-0. The Alton Budget Committee recommends by a vote of 5-0. A majority vote is required. Now, keep in mind, this exact same amendment will need to be made in Barnstead.
That's what I was just going to ask.
Will be okay in Barnstead because they're a traditional town meeting, which means the school board can still recommend an article with this language.
Okay, I'm not sure if everybody heard that.
No.
But because the town of Barnstead still operates under the traditional town meeting, the school board is able to amend the article on the floor.
I have a question, though, a point of order. So it says the JMA Board recommends by a vote of 8-0. Now, this is different language that they recommended. You see? Does that make a difference?
Well, we're going to revote. You'll have at the,
We'll revote at the end.
Will be-
This body clearly has the authority to amend.
Correct.
Because of the differences between SB2 and the traditional meeting schedule in Barnstead, there is ample opportunity for the language to match on that warrant.
And the JMA would still have to vote on it
right, and that's why
And
you,
we'll see them in
in
a couple
February.
weeks.
You
Okay, I just want to
actually-
make sure that we don't
Yeah.
negate the whole article by voting yes on
Correct.
something that changed when it says the Budget Committee recommended.
Thank you. So the original proposed language, now amended, or, did you vote that? Hasn't been voted yet, so under consideration, refers to the JMA boards. That is the school board's capital plan, so it doesn't rely on a CIP committee or any other body to get involved. The school board would have control of that. However, the proposed amendment does not seem to alter the intention or the meaning, and if it makes it clearer, then so much for the better. And we can certainly have the same language recommended out of this meeting proposed in Barnstead. Or not. It's the school board at the high school has its own capital plan for the high school.
Oh, okay, I thought when you talked in the beginning of this, you said that the Alton CIP went over these articles.
We keep them informed, as good neighbors should.
You've been informed, okay, thank you.
any other comments on the proposed amendment?
Paul Terry again. So I understand from Superintendent Broderick's response to the proposed amendment that the effect of approving or disapproving the amendment is really moot.
That is correct.
It really doesn't matter. It will have no substantial effect on this warrant article, whether the amendment is approved or not approved.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? Okay, I'm sorry. Can I see the in favor again, please? And opposed? The amendment passes.
I move to restrict further reconsideration on this article.
I'll second.
Oh, no, do we need to
No, we need to vote the
again?
article.
Again?
Vote on
Okay,
the
sorry.
Right.
Jumping.
All those in favor of the amended article? All those opposed? Okay, the amended article passes.
And now I move to restrict reconsideration.
And I'll second that.
It's been a few years since we've had an amendment, Lauren.
All those in favor of restricting reconsideration? Any opposed? Okay, this article is restricted from further consideration. Article 9, reports and business. To hear reports of any committee, boards, trustees, commissions, officials, agents, or concerned voters, and vote to accept the same. Furthermore, to conduct any other business that may legally come before said meeting. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak?
I would ask the board to see if, talk to the attorney to see if, as Robin pointed out, this is confusion of which one of these capital reserves are for, to see if you could put a parentheses Alton in front of the, as in Article 5, put parentheses Alton Buildings and Grounds Expendable Trust. So especially for the voters. Now, today we've heard this and explained it to her, but I think that would be helpful. I don't know if you can legally do that, but I think it would help. Second thing I'd ask is that fan be turned off when we're having meetings. All I hear is, I know it can be turned off. Thank you.
How is it on that side? Okay.
Capital plan.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you. We'll check with our attorney and see if we can add a little clarification to the titles without having to have the voters approve it here.
Okay, anyone else under Article 9? Seeing none, I will officially close the 2024 deliberative session for the Alton School District. Thank you very much for coming.
Now we reconvene the board.
How'd you do? Did you win?